And it's Ken Kraetzer. Have a chance to talk with a good friend of mine, Robert Castelli, who is a Vietnam veteran, someone who served in the New York State Police Department, has taught several institutions in the New York area, and has served in the New York State Assembly, and is actually running for the New York State Senate with a primary coming up in September. Bob, good to see you.
Good to see you again, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Bob, tell us a little bit about, you've got a background going back to some difficult days in Vietnam. Tell us a little bit about your time in the U.S. Army.
Well, as you know, I dropped out of school at 17, enlisted in the Army, and I volunteered to serve in Vietnam. I had the honor of serving as an infantry sergeant in the 1st Air Cavalry Division during the Tet Offensive. I got there at the end of the Battle of Hue, went into Quai Son, the A Shore Valley. So I worked in a reconnaissance company and a line infantry company during the time I was there. And then when I came back, as I always told my college students, remember one thing: if you drop out, drop back in. And I did, and at the time completed 2 undergraduate degrees and later a graduate degree from Harvard.
Well, you experience what it's like to transition back from the Army into civilian life. And you had quite a distinguished career with the New York State Police over a 20-year service. Tell us about that.
Yes, I was honored to work with the state police for over 21 years. I started as a trooper here in Westchester in the Hawthorne Barracks, and then was the resident trooper in a town that I live in Lewisboro, and then got promoted. And of course, every time I got promoted, they sent me another 200, 300, 400 miles away from home. And I finally got to a point of if I got promoted one more time, I'd be in debtor's prison. But I served all over the state of New York as a sergeant, a station commander, eventually as a criminal investigator in the organized crime task force. Got involved in a lot of the high-profile cases in organized crime and the Colombian drug cartels and what have you. And I had a great career, sadly marked by the loss of 5 of my friends killed in the line of duty. But it was, as in the military, also an honor to serve in the state police.
Absolutely. And then you had quite an educational opportunity up at the Kennedy School. And then you've taught and run your own business for a number of years. Tell us about that.
I have. When I left the New York State Police, my graduation present from me to me, or my retirement present, as it were, was to go to the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University, where I was fortunate enough to be named a Pickett Fellow in Criminal Justice Policy and Management by the National Institute of Justice at the Department of Justice. And they did that in light of my 20-year contribution to law enforcement. So completed a master's degree in public administration there. And then I volunteered to teach initially, and it turns out I got hired simultaneously in 3 colleges: Iona College in New Rochelle, John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City, and Marist College. And I literally, for the first 5 years, taught in all 3 colleges every week, eventually ending up as the chairman of criminal justice at Iona here in Westchester.
And then, Bob, you kind of changed directions again and went into public service, several elected positions, including 2 tours in the New York State Assembly. Tell us about some of the positions that you've held as representative.
Sure. Well, I started out running for my local town board in the town of Lewisboro. I was there for 4 years. We had a lot of fun, a great learning experience there, serving people, because as Tip O'Neill once said, all politics is local. And I learned local government on a first-hand basis there. We had a very great success in that 4-year period. We kept taxes to 1.7% increase for the whole 4 years, not just 1 year of the 4. Managed to increase our services, increase service delivery, build our police department, which I oversaw. And that was a great learning experience for me, after which I ran for the New York State Assembly, and I served 2 terms there, picked up the remainder of a term in a seat that was being vacated by Adam Bradley, who became mayor of White Plains. Ran the first time and then ran for a second full term back in 2010. While I was there, I had the great opportunity and the honor of being the ranking member on Veterans Affairs, as well as the ranking member on the Aging, on the Committee for Government Operations, the Election Law Committee, and for crime in our community. So I had a really rich background there, and I was really honored to serve with members on both sides of the aisle.
And Bob, you have an opportunity to compete in a primary coming up in early September for New York Senate seat. Tell us a little bit about why you've decided to run for the New York State Senate.
Well, from a very pragmatic point of view, obviously running for a seat that's now being vacated by Senator Ball gives me the opportunity to serve in a seat where my party obviously is in the majority, and therefore, instead of being marginalized when you're in the minority party, as I was in the assembly, albeit that I still got a lot of stuff done because I had help on both sides of the aisle, now I'd get the opportunity, if I'm fortunate enough, to be able to serve where I can get a whole lot more accomplished for the people I serve. And that seat encompasses much of Westchester, Putnam County, as well as parts of Dutchess County.
And certainly, the business community is trying to develop in White Plains, Westchester County, and trying to come out of the recession. What are some of your thoughts about the things that can be done at the New York State level to help the business community?
Well, there are a multitude of things that we've done. You know, I had the pleasure and privilege, as you know, of representing the White Plains business community, which included 6 Fortune 500 companies and 2,000 corporations. And because I ran my own small business as a security consulting firm, I recognize the plight of small businessmen. As a matter of fact, it's one of the first things that I did was become a co-sponsor of the bill to repeal the MTA payroll tax because it had such an onerous effect on small business people and on commuters. So that was something that I got to see as a small businessman and got to do something about as a legislator. Obviously, I worked on the regional economic development councils that the governor's office had put together in my 2 terms there, trying to make New York a little bit more business friendly because, as you know, people in New York vote with their feet. They're leaving, and I saw Governor Rick Perry the other day at the conservative dinner in New York City, and of course we had to check him to make sure he didn't take another New York business with him when he left. So we want New York to be a business-friendly environment. I think it needs to be through the regional economic development councils and empire zones and a multitude of things that you can do in government to make New York business-friendly, including incentivizing with tax breaks and what have you.
And one of the big projects in the area is certainly the rebuild of the Tappan Zee Bridge. Will affect Westchester, Rockland, and the whole metropolitan area for years to come. What are your thoughts on supporting that project and also other infrastructure needs of the area?
Well, I think the Tappan Zee Bridge project absolutely was something that was long overdue. I mean, as you know, we're 60 years into a bridge that was built to last 50 years. Now, who decided that one is beyond me. But at the end of the day, you have 2 individuals, both of whom are running for governor. You have Rob Astorino, who is our county executive here, who fought hard to make sure we had a mass transit option and succeeded at getting that, and Governor Cuomo, who got the program off the ground as well. And collectively, we're getting the Tappan Zee Bridge built. And, of course, this is probably one of the biggest and most important infrastructure projects in America right now.
And, Bob, certainly as a Vietnam veteran, and you're an expert in the healthcare needs of veterans, your son is a veteran, obviously big issues at the VA on the national level. What are some of the areas that need to be addressed on the New York State level that can help our veterans?
Well, certainly healthcare reform in general, both for the civilian populace as well as our veterans, becomes a very important thing. But dealing with veterans coming back with traumatic brain injuries, with post-traumatic stress, and you notice I don't call it post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a very normal and natural reaction to the horrific situations that one encounters in combat. But we need to put all our effort into helping those returning veterans to both be able to deal with those issues as well as transition into the civilian world, because the type of experience they have is absolutely priceless. And that experience is something that we need to put back to work, especially here in New York.
And Bob Castelli, just tell us again about the primary that you're running in and just your thoughts on why things that you would work on if you're elected to the New York State Senate.
Well, of course, we're running in a primary, which is on September 9th of this year. Tuesday, September 9th is the primary, the Republican primary. I'm running to earn the right to become the candidate for our party in that. A lot of people have thought that the party bosses decided to pick their replacements there. I believe the people should have a choice, and as a result, I put my hat in the ring for that seat. We're looking at a multitude of issues here. We're looking at the issue of Common Core, which as a teacher, I realized conceptually was not a bad idea, but the actual use of it and the implementation of it became a disaster, and we're looking to repeal that as well. Certainly the protection of our Second Amendment, our right to keep and bear arms is an issue that's very important to us, and a multitude of issues that have to do with creating jobs, cutting our taxes and making New York the kind of business-friendly environment that it once was.
And Bob Castelli, just tell us again the communities that this Senate seat would cover.
The communities covered by the 40th Senate District are the town of Mount Pleasant, the towns of Pound Ridge, Lewisboro, North Salem, Somers, Yorktown, Portland, and the city of Peekskill in Westchester, Carmel, and Patterson, as well as the town of Pauling and Beekman up in Dutchess. So you've got Dutchess, Putnam, as well as Westchester represented in that district.
Bob Castelli, great to see you, and thank you for your service to our country and your son as well. You said your son just retired from the Army?
He did. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Army Special Forces, just finished his 5th tour in Afghanistan, and he is the soldier I always wished I could be. So congratulations to my son, and welcome home.
That's great. Our best wishes to your son as well. Bob Castelli, always good to see you, and our best wishes on your election coming up in the primary this September.
Thank you. It was an honor to serve, and it's an honor to be here. And thank you for what you've done for all our veterans, Ken. You are one of the unsung heroes in the veterans community.
Oh, thank you very much. Great to see you. Bob Castelli, this is Ken Kraetzer talking with veterans.